What's going on, people, and welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Football Busters podcast. And today we have a very, very special episode for you. We have our first annual Busties Fantasy Football Awards. Today, I'm your host, Will. Joining me is my co-host, Eric. Eric, you want to talk to the people real quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to say hello and also give a quick apology for my terrible appearance right now. We've been struggling for the past hour to try to figure out some technical difficulties and never found the solution. So I had to switch to my regular webcam video, which is all crusty and dusty looking. So sorry about that, but the show goes on.
And it's perfect because it's only for the one broadcast we want to look as good as possible.
Looking
So,
dapper, we're ready to go.
let's fucking get it. It's time for the Busties, everybody. We're going to go through and we're just going to give our awards out. These are some custom awards that we've come up with to just kind of commemorate the fantasy football season and just some of our biggest, best moments and some of our worst moments. So we're going to have some fun with it. And just to kick things off, we are going to start with the first award on the docket, and that is the Taysom Hill Award. This award goes to the person that is most likely to be shit when I actually put them in my starting lineup. And our nominees for this award are Mr. Taysom Hill himself. We've got Gabe Davis of the Buffalo Bills, Dalton Schultz of the Dallas Cowboys, and DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers. So we're going to go ahead and talk about each one of these nominees and why they made this list, and we're going to give you guys who won.
Yeah, so we can probably alternate between these guys. I'll start though. We got our first nominee here, Taysom Hill. His scoring production in the season was a little wild. He goes out and scores 15 points in the first game, then follows that up with a 1 and an 8-point performance. First 3 weeks, actually fairly usable tight end numbers. That's not terrible for the position. And then he puts up that monster 30 bomb week in week 4. And, a lot of people, including myself, say, okay, he's high variance. You just have to embrace it. At the tight end position, especially, if you want the good weeks, you're going to have to embrace the bad weeks and just start him the entire time. And then, of course, over the next 7 weeks, he averages 4.5 points per game without a single game over 10 points. So everybody gives up on him, and then he finds a way to score 10 points every game the next 4 weeks. So basically, you never got the usable weeks that you wanted out of him because you had already given up.
Yeah. And then over to Mr. Gabe Davis. Pretty much a similar story, similar tale of the tape here. His first thing is he would have one good game and then have 2 really bad games to follow that up. So he'd have that good game, get you to believe and start him the following week, and then disappoint immediately. But as a good fantasy football manager, you'd say, well, let's keep him out there because his good game is coming. And then he'd disappoint you again, and then you bench him, and then guess what? Boom, good game. And he just kind of repeated that cycle until week 11 when he just stopped having good games altogether. So you didn't have to worry about it after week 11, honestly.
What a season. Thanks, Gabe. And then next on the list, we have Dalton Schultz. His start to the season was pretty chaotic. He had 3 good games kind of randomly mixed in with 3 literal goose eggs, just total zeros. And then right around the midpoint of the season, he just started alternating between good and bad games every week. So, one good game, one bad game, just keeps going like that. So ultimately, if you just kept him in your starting lineup, probably wasn't that bad. But if you tried to time it, it definitely didn't work out for you.
Yeah. And then moving over to our last nominee, Mr. DJ Moore. Again, very similar tale of the tape. He would have probably one good game every 3 games and then would just fall apart every single time. We tried to blame it on QB play. We thought that, Sam Darnold coming in, that's the answer. Was not the answer. We thought Baker Mayfield getting to the team early in the season was the answer. Was not the answer. We even thought PJ Walker back there at quarterback was the answer, but lo and behold, not the answer. So that's why DJ Moore has made this list. But you're probably wondering who it is that's bringing the list, who's bringing the award home, and that would be, shocker, it's Mr. Taysom Hill himself.
The man himself.
Yep. A little bit of a tease right there. Yeah, he won his own award, but he deserved it. He deserved it fully. And with that, we're going to move on to the next award.
Whoa. Hold on.
Uh-huh.
Make sure you let Taysom know, because of course he's watching. He will receive his Busty in the mail.
Yeah, you're right.
Within the coming week.
I'll tweet at him. I'll let him know that he can be looking forward to receiving it in the mail. Hopefully he sees it and responds. Up next, we got the Geno Smith Award, and this award goes to the player that was most criminally underused by their coaching staff. And the nominees for this would be Mr. Chase Edmonds of the Denver Broncos and the Miami Dolphins,
Yep.
Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints, Elijah Moore of the New York Jets, maybe, we think he was probably on that team, and Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, so we'll start it off with the first nomination here in Chase Edmonds. He was one of the very first free agent signings this offseason and was given a good contract, a pretty good amount of money by the Dolphins. So it seemed like they prioritized him. That wasn't the case. We found out Raheem Mostert was actually going to be the starting running back. He was going to get all the playing time. And Chase Edmonds, who is a fantastic receiving back, very versatile guy, wasn't going to get used that way at all. Didn't get used hardly at all in the receiving game. Ultimately, just traded away, like you said, to the Broncos, and even when he gets there, still sits behind lifetime backups like Latavius Murray, Mike Boone, and Marlon Mack.
Yeah, Chase Edmonds, pretty big disappointment from a coaching aspect there.
Yeah.
Next up, we got Mr. Alvin Kamara. This was the worst season of Alvin Kamara's career, just by far. He played 15 games, which is the most he's played in the last 5 years, but even still, he finished with the second worst yard per carry of his career and the second fewest receptions of his career, and by far the fewest touchdowns of his career. He actually started the season pretty well, but after week 8, his usage just dipped dramatically, especially in the passing game. It's like they forgot that he is primarily a receiving back. So, Alvin Kamara on the list.
Yeah, didn't make a lot of sense there. We move on to Elijah Moore, who, after an incredibly promising rookie campaign in his first year, he came into the year with a lot of high hopes, and so did we as fantasy managers for Elijah Moore. Unfortunately, he was held back by poor quarterback play, and not long into the season, he voiced his frustrations by requesting a trade. And then after his hiatus, when he finally did come back, the coaching staff really tried to send him a message by playing him behind Denzel Mims and Jeff Smith. I felt like this was just handled poorly all the way around. There's a little bit of blame on Elijah Moore, but the coaching staff really needs to utilize their best players.
Yeah, Elijah Moore, not without blame, but the usage was still insane to see. And our last nominee, Mr. Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is by far the best offensive weapon the Falcons have, by far. And yet he was only on the field for 71.9% of the team's offensive snaps, and that ranked 19th among tight ends. 19th. His route participation, meaning how often he ran a route during a passing play as opposed to blocking, was 76.1%. As a receiving tight end, as a generational receiving tight end talent. That ranked 13th among tight ends, and he was only targeted 8.7% of the time when the team was in the red zone. And we don't have the rankings for that, but just to put it in perspective, Travis Kelce's red zone target rate was 28.8%, a whopping 20% more. So Kyle Pitts on the list. But with that being said, you guys are probably wondering who it is that won this award. Who was it that brought it home, Eric?
Drum roll.
Drum roll. Kyle Pitts.
It was motherfucking Kyle Pitts, dude.
Kyle
Jesus.
Pitts. Fuck.
I hate everything about this.
Kyle Pitts.
I didn't want to be reminded of our hatred of Arthur Smith this early in the morning, but that's what we're getting.
And he's here to stay for at least another year, probably. So,
Oh, God.
hate to see it.
Hate to see it.
And we're going on to the next award. This is called the James Cameron Award, and it's called the James Cameron Award because it's the most likely to get doubted and still ball, because I have no fucking idea how Avatar 2 has made $1.9 billion. I don't know a single person who's seen it. They're probably washing money, but hey, that's just me doubting him still. And he's still out there balling. And our
Damn right.
nominees for this award are Mr. Amari Cooper of the Cleveland Browns, Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders, Miles Sanders of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Devonta Smith, also of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, so let's get it kicked off with the man at the top, Amari Cooper, our first nominee. He came into the season kind of questionable as to what his fantasy performance was going to be with Jacoby Brissett as his starting quarterback in a new situation, new team. His pre-draft consensus rank was wide receiver 33. And although he wasn't the most consistent, he did end up with a pretty good fantasy finish of wide receiver 14, vastly outperforming his preseason rank.
Indeed. Our next nominee, Mr. Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders. To start the season out, he had a pre-draft consensus rank of running back 23, and throughout the majority of the season, he was actually the running back 1, but he finished as the RB4. This is somebody who played in the Hall of Fame game early in the season that we thought that, no starters will be playing in. There's no reason why he should be out there on the field. He played the entirety of the game. There was stuff like it's just weird stuff going on with Josh Jacobs. They didn't pick up his team option, his 5th-year option. We just thought he wasn't going to be on this team. We thought he wasn't going to get used. They brought in Zamir White, so we thought they were bringing in legitimate RB talent behind him. But no, they just ended up using him as much as they wanted, and he was great. So Josh
Yeah.
Jacobs, we've apologized numerous times, but yeah.
Against all odds, he got it done. Another guy that did something similar, Miles Sanders, came into the season with a running quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who we expected to siphon off a lot of rushing attempts and rushing touchdowns, especially off of the previous season where Miles Sanders had legit 0 rushing touchdowns. He came into the season with a pre-draft consensus rank of running back 34. And he proved us all wrong. The Eagles as a whole just had a much better team than I think a lot of us expected, and Miles Sanders ran a lot hotter than we could have expected. He ended up as the running back 16 in points per game.
Indeed. And then to finish up the list, we got Mr. Devonta Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles on a team that we thought going into the season was going to be a very run-heavy team, that they weren't going to throw the ball a whole lot. And even if they did throw the ball, there were a lot of mouths to feed out there in terms of they have Dallas Goedert. You got A.J. Brown, the new acquisition. Devonta Smith, of course. Still guys like Kez Watkins out there floating around on the team. Then Miles Sanders out the backfield. Of course, the rushing upside of Jalen Hurts. We just didn't know if this team was going to be throwing the ball a lot. But Devonta Smith finishing the season as the wide receiver 16, pre-draft consensus wide receiver 36, and also getting the Eagles record for receptions in a season. So Devonta Smith having a great season.
Very impressive from him.
And our winner for the James Cameron Award is Josh Jacobs. It is Mr. Josh Jacobs.
We knew it. Mm-hmm. You should have known. It's Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs, you can be expecting your award in the mail.
Keep an eye out for it, Josh. I know you're looking forward to it.
Our next award goes to Comeback Fantasy Player of the Year. This one's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a player who we never expected to really pop back up. And, well, not that we never really expected, but we had given up on them a little bit. We didn't expect them to do as well as they did this year, and they ended up popping off. And to kick off this list,
by the way, quotation marks.
It's a light we.
The fantasy community.
Yeah, not specifically us, but we.
Yeah.
So to kick off that list is Mr. Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks, Mr. Brandon Ayuk of the San Francisco 49ers, Mr. Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers and Carolina Panthers this year, and Mr. Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants.
Yes, sir. So we'll start out with Geno at the top of the list. He was a career backup and a total afterthought after being, a decently high draft pick, a first-round quarterback selected off the board. His career just didn't really pan out, and we thought that he was destined to forever be a backup. But he finally got his chance to be the guy in Seattle, and he seized it. He led his team to the playoffs, and he also finished as the fantasy quarterback 5 overall and the QB 9 in points per game, just something that I don't think any of us would have expected. I did the air quotes this one was definitely we did not expect Geno Smith to be this good.
If you had told me that Geno Smith would lead a team to the playoffs in 2023, I would have told you I would eat a shoe. Now, next on the list, we got Mr. Brandon Ayuk of the 49ers. Coming into 2021, he was everyone's pick at the wide receiver position to break out. But instead, he found himself in the doghouse for Kyle Shanahan. We thought this was due to a lot of on-field issues towards effort in practice and blocking, stuff like that. But this year, he's back in good graces as a focal point in the offense. And he finished the season as a wide receiver 15 overall and the wide receiver 24 in points per game. So Mr. Brandon Ayuk being able to come back to fantasy relevancy in a good way.
Yeah, we love to see it. And it's one that you, Will, predicted yourself. You were on it.
I was happy about that one.
Heck yeah. So then we move on to CMC, Mr. Christian McCaffrey. After playing only 10 games in the previous 2 years, McCaffrey was labeled as injury prone, and much of the fantasy community would have called you an idiot for drafting him at the 101 this year. Not us. He was our 101. But what did he do this year? He played all 17 games, and he finished as the RB2 overall and in points per game. A fantastic performance, and something that we, the Busters, saw coming.
Absolutely. We called that one from the start. Eric was diehard on that decision from the very start. I even had to be convinced a little bit, and Eric was able to do it. Going on to somebody else on this list, we got Mr. Saquon Barkley. After missing a year due to a torn ACL and then disappointing his first year back, where he also suffered a severe high ankle sprain, Saquon was also labeled as injury prone. Not only that, some people thought he was just washed up and he just wasn't going to reach the same heights he had earlier in his career. But he sure proved those people wrong by playing in 16 games and finishing as the RB5 overall and in points per game. So Mr. Saquon Barkley coming back in a big way. So you guys ready? Because we got our winner for this one. And
Here
our
we
winner
go.
for this award, we've actually got two winners for this one. It's a joint winner award. We got Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley. They both
Let's
came back in
go.
great ways, proved everybody wrong. We couldn't give it to just one of them without giving the other one, so they're both going to get it. But everybody on this list is very deserving, and we had some great nominees.
Really, we just wanted to stick it to all you injury-prone truthers. Get the fuck out of here. There's no such thing. Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, in your face, bro. Come on.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And then moving on, we got one of my favorite awards right here. We got the Best Busters Pick of the Year. This is just a player that we believed in from the start. Maybe everyone didn't believe in him as much as we did, but we sure did. And yeah, we're just going to go ahead and list out these nominees. And to start off the list, we got Mr. Christian Kirk of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, Mr. Brandon Ayuk, a two-time nominee on this list. Mr. Brandon Ayuk of the San Francisco 49ers. The Sun God himself, Mr. Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots.
Yes, sir. I love this list. We did have a couple guys that were, ranked up higher, but we wanted to get those late round values on here. So to start us off, we had Christian Kirk, who was by far our favorite late round value come that 8th, 9th round turn. His pre-draft consensus rank, just by the fantasy community, was about wide receiver 37. We had him ranked 5 spots higher at wide receiver 32. We figured that he was going to outperform expectations, but not by as much as he did. He ended up finishing in points per game as the wide receiver 18. An absolutely fantastic finish as the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville. Just a great performance from that team, but especially from Christian Kirk as a whole.
Absolutely. Then going on to Mr. Brandon Ayuk of the 49ers. As we just talked about, he had a good outlook going into 2021. Disappointed largely because of his own performance and how the team viewed him. But going into this year, a lot more trust was given to him. I figured that with, Trey Lance coming back, the chemistry would be there. Trey Lance didn't play this season, but also it just didn't matter because the team just trusted in Brandon Ayuk and they decided to go out there and use him this year. The consensus ranking for Brandon Ayuk was the wide receiver 35. Our rank for him was wide receiver 33. I had him a little bit higher. Eric had him a little lower.
That's on me. I brought our rank down. Will would have had him a lot higher. So this is really Will's pick, not the Buster's pick.
But I think Brandon Ayuk actually finished around where I had him listed at the wide receiver 24. So Brandon Ayuk, good pick on our part, mostly my part. But
on your part. I bow down to you. So on to the next one. Probably just my favorite player on the list, the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown. His pre-draft consensus rank by the fantasy community was the wide receiver 29. We had him a whole 7 spots higher than that, all the way up at wide receiver 22. And he did exactly what we expected. He was a target hog, just, a reception monster, PPR, absolute just domination from him. He finished in points per game as the wide receiver 10 on a Lions offense that was hotter than I think a lot of people expected, but something that we kind of saw coming. And yeah, for Amon-Ra, it was just a great call on our part.
Hell yeah. And then to round out this list, we got Mr. Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. Somebody who we didn't really know how to rank this guy. And not because of how talented he is or anything like that, because Ramondre Stevenson's a great player, as you guys saw this season. But we just didn't know how the Patriots were going to use him at all. But it got to a point in the season where he was the only running back left in that running back room. And man, did he take advantage of it, because he went out there and he did his thing. Pre-draft consensus for the fantasy community, he was ranked around the running back 31. Again, I can't really credit that to what people thought about him as a player, just his situation. But our rank, we actually gave him the RB26 because we felt like even if he was splitting time, he was still going to separate himself from the pack at some point. But he actually ended up finishing in fantasy points per game as the running back 18. So Ramondre Stevenson, take a bow. That was just a great season on your part. But the winner of the Best Busters Pick of the Year is Mr. Christian Kirk. Mr. Christian Kirk,
let's go.
Please make sure you're keeping an eye on that mail. You will have it in the mail. We're going to send it out there to you. We'll get your address. Trust me. Don't worry about it. Don't even worry how we're going to get it. We're going to get your address. You're going to get your award. It's not
I'm sure he's waiting with bated breath.
It's not a threat, I promise. We'll get your address. We know where you live. And then moving on to the next award, we got two more awards left, guys. We're getting there, and these are the two most important ones. We've got for this one the least valuable player, the
Mm,
LVP. This goes to a player who, yeah, they just shit the bed really in terms of where you picked them and what you expected them to do on the season. They did none of it. Now, our
yeah.
nominees for this one are Mr. Allen Robinson of the Los Angeles Rams. We got Mr. Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. I know that one hurts to see on the list. We got Mr. Russell Wilson of the Denver Broncos. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anyone who's been watching this channel.
No.
And we've got Mr. Kyle Pitts, another two-time nominee on this list for bad categories. I hate to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, really unfortunate list here, but let's get into it. So we got our first nominee. We have Allen Robinson. He was unfortunately one of our favorite mid-round wide receivers. We had him not ranked too high above consensus, but he was somebody that we liked and had a lot of people probably draft if you listen to us. So sorry about that. He was probably going around the fifth round in most drafts and was basically unusable as a fantasy player for almost the entire season. He ended up finishing as the wide receiver 63 in points per game.
And he would have finished even worse than that if Cooper Kupp hadn't gotten hurt. Remember that,
That's
folks.
true. That's true.
Moving on to the next one, we got Mr. Jonathan Taylor. The consensus 101 overall in drafts finishes the RB 18 in points per game, but only played 11 games, so he was the RB 34 overall. Not exactly what you want out of your first overall pick at all. Even when he was out there on the field, the team saw a lot of struggles just from the Colts as a whole. So, Jonathan Taylor, not less talented than we believe. We just hope the situation gets better, but yeah, this season earned you an LVP, my guy, just based on value alone. Sorry.
Yep, for sure. And then we move on to Russell Wilson, who coming into the season we all thought was a surefire Hall of Famer. Many fantasy analysts, he was their favorite mid-round quarterback, including us. We were high on him as well. And guess what? He goes out and finishes as the quarterback 22 in points per game. We had him, I think, as our quarterback 7. I think most fantasy analysts had him right around there at quarterback 8, quarterback 7, and he goes out and finishes at the bottom end QB2 rank. Just impossibly bad. Basically, couldn't have predicted it. It couldn't have been worse for Russell Wilson this season.
Yeah, yeah. And then our last one on the list, Mr. Kyle Pitts. What else can we really say here? He was the consensus tight end 3, taken in the third round, sometimes earlier as the second round in some drafts. And he finishes the tight end 21 in points per game. Also did not finish out the season due to injury, but it probably wouldn't have mattered. If he was out there on the field, they weren't going to use him regardless. So, Kyle Pitts, you have
Yeah.
definitely earned yourself a spot on this nominees list. And it's not your fault, man. I hate to say it, it's just not your fault. And our winner of the least valuable player in fantasy football was Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, yeah. We're sorry, but just
101,
based
man.
off of value alone, just being the 101 and not doing
Yeah.
anything, it's got to be you, man. I'm sorry.
Can't have that. And it sucks because I feel like all 3 of the other nominees would have been more on brand, but just couldn't do it. Jonathan Taylor at the 101 has to be the LVP.
I want it Rust so bad, bro. You guys got to understand. And then moving on to our final award, the biggest award, the most important award, we've got
Yep.
the most valuable player in fantasy football. Obviously, it just goes without explaining. And that's going to be, our nominees are going to be Mr. Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings, Mr. Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders, Mr. Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs, and Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I love this award. I love the nominees that we have here. We have a representative from each position group, which I think is pretty cool. Everybody performed really well. But let's start with Justin Jefferson. He ended up finishing as the wide receiver number 1, wide receiver 1 overall, and the wide receiver 2 in points per game, just behind Cooper Kupp. He did cost you a first round pick, but he was well worth it. Absolutely dominated this season and carried a lot of people to their fantasy championships.
Yep. And then Mr. Josh Jacobs, one of, if not the best value pick in the draft this year. He was drafted in the 6th and 7th round of most drafts, but paid off in an absolutely gigantic way. He finishes the RB3 overall and the RB4 in points per game. So, Mr. Josh Jacobs, hats off to you, for sure.
Yeah, fantastic and unexpected performance from Jacobs this year. We move on to Travis Kelsey. His price tag was around a late first or an early second, but he provided easily the biggest positional advantage in all of fantasy football. He was the tight end one by a massive margin. And this is a stat that we've thrown out in a couple of the past videos, but the difference in points per game between Travis Kelsey and the tight end two was larger than the difference between the tight end two and the tight end 19. That goes to show you just how big of an advantage Travis Kelsey was on your teams this year.
Absolutely. And then to round out the list, Mr. Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. He was probably taken in the 5th round or later in your drafts, but I'll bet he'll get picked in the 3rd round next year, just because of the performance he had this season. He finishes the QB1 in points per game, and he was just the model of consistency. And he only scored less than 20 points in the game twice all year. So other than that, he was absolutely balling. Definitely a breakout player of the year for sure. Yeah. So I guess you guys are wondering who won this award, the most important one. Can we get a drum roll, please?
I'm on it, baby.
The winner of the most valuable fantasy football player is Travis Kelsey.
It's easy.
It's so easy, bro. It's the difference. You guys have to understand at a certain point in this season, if Travis Kelsey had no touchdowns, he would still be the tight end one by a large margin.
It was absolutely ridiculous what he was doing for teams. If you had him on your team, it was a free ride. It was a free ride to the championship. It almost didn't matter what you did in free agency, off the waiver wire, in drafts. Really, Travis Kelsey was a cheat code in fantasy this year. That's why he's our MVP.
Yeah, he's got to get it. Hats off to you, Travis. I'll be tweeting at you later today. Your stuff will be coming in the mail also. Looking forward to it. Just yeah, hit us up if you want to be on the podcast too. If you want to just talk to the people about your MVP win, it's all good, man.
Dude, bro, him and Jason, let's have a little podcast collab. They got what is it called? New Heights?
Facts, yeah, both of them.
Yeah, let's get it together, baby. You know what's up.
But with that being said, thank you guys again. We just wanted to give you guys one more thing to just round out the season, just kind of put a nice little bow on it, give out our awards, our superlatives, if you will, for just these players. And I hope you guys had some fun with it, because we definitely had some fun making this list and coming up with these players for you guys. So with that being said, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so you know when we drop our newest videos. Be on the lookout, because we're still going to be posting videos going forward. Dynasty stuff is coming up ASAP, like ASAP.
Yes,
like,
sir.
like next video ASAP.
Yeah.
So we're on that. And Eric, you got anything to tell the people?
Yeah, man, check us out on our other socials as well. It's all linked down in the description, but we got our TikTok, which we took a little bit of a break from during the holidays and after the season, but we're going to be right back on it, like you said, for all of our Dynasty content and things coming up like that. On our YouTube shorts on here as well. Check us out over there. On Twitter, all that good stuff. We're going to be hitting all of those pretty hard in the coming weeks. So check us out on other socials. And yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed the award show. It was a lot of fun for us to do. If you stuck with us all the way till the end, as always, we love you. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.